God, my pitch is so horrible now. Hello, Niels. All right, and hello, those of you who are out there now. Whenever you watch, however, and whenever you watch, you are welcome to take in the beauty and human centered. We hate that word. Like the human centered, it's like whatever. Hello, BetaCodex Live. I'm Ryan. Niels is over here. Today's topic is, I will pop it up on the screen. I think we've seen it before. Hierarchy, the good, the bad, and the partially true. That good, the bad, the partially true. I know we did it a while back for complexity theories, which maybe we'll do that again. But I didn't realize, I did not realize that from this book, which is a mammoth book, and I'm like, it's amazing. Patrick Veerman, The Skeptic's HR Dictionary: The Good, the Bad, and the Partially True. So maybe before we get on to that, I didn't get to go to the book club that we had on this. So I'm curious how that one came. And we're just going right in. We'll go to hierarchies in a minute. How did you discover the Veerman book? Had you already been aware of it?
Of the what? Of the good, the bad?
Yeah, the good, the bad, the HR Dictionary. Yeah.
Yes, at the time, I think at the time we did that book club session about that book, so it sprung to mind. But of course, this is that book title and also the title of our session today. It's based on a Clint Eastwood movie, right?
Well, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's such a nice. It has such a nice ring to it. The good, the bad, the partially true.
Yeah.
It's you can use it for so many things, right?
Yes.
The good, the bad, and the partially true. That would be, or death, the good, the bad, and or happiness, or whatever. Purpose, the good. It works for so many things, right?
Budgets, the good, the bad, and the partially true.
Well,
that's only the bad.
About budgets.
Yes. Management, the good, the bad, and the partially true. Maybe. All right,
yes.
Whatever.
Yes, that would work. Yes.
Yeah.
What doesn't work is stuff. This title framing doesn't work with stuff that is entirely bad, like the guillotine. The good, the bad, and the bad. It doesn't make a much sense.
Budgeting is the guillotine. Budgeting is the guillotine.
It's terrible like the guillotine. Yeah, it's deadly like the guillotine.
Oh my goodness.
And there's nothing good about it. So yeah, but hierarchy, there is something good, something bad, and a lot of partially true. I think there's a lot of talk.
A lot of talk. Let me get this. I was going to share.
Yeah, this is episode 37 of
BetaCodex Live. Episode 37 of BetaCodex Live. We have been doing this since May of last year. And pretty much on a weekly basis. We had a little break between whatever we were thinking of seasons. I think now, like, we'll just go, and then until we want to take a break, we'll say we take a break, and then
exactly, and then we start with season 3. Yeah, the topics don't seem to end, and I think we found pleasure in having guests occasionally that we really wanted to speak to, like last time. Our conversation with Todd Bridgman. What do you think with hindsight?
Ryan? That was, and again, since I'm kind of half producer here, I didn't get to dig in as much as I wanted, but I was so pleased with what he brought to the table and the conversation. Especially, we had some conversation before and after. We had a really interesting conversation after.
Yes, pity we didn't record that. Yes, that was
so we'll go back. Yeah, I was really happy with that and what Todd brought here in terms of challenging the accepted and poorly accepted images of some folks who get a bad rap, right? And then there's some folks who don't get a bad rap that should get a bad rap.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, we talked. This is probably the third time at least Elton Mayo has come up in the Andre Gabor book, Capitalist Philosophers, and then with Ron in the Anti-Managerial, and then again with Todd. It's like, this dude was a charlatan. apparently, and I had no idea, or even quack, whatever it was. So
Yes, and I mean, there are
I
so
was,
many quacks around in our field. I think it's worth highlighting that. In a way, I think Elton Mayo might have been one of the first, famous quacks of our field, of the field of management. But there have been so many afterwards, coming after. So there's a whole school of quackery in management as well, and it's broadening and extending its reach and so on. And I found it. What I found with after our conversation with Todd Bridgman, I thought, oh my God, Todd, he's in a way a significant part of his academic career is about debunking myths and dogma and wrongs that are told or produced by management textbooks, which is so interesting, right? That you need people like Todd, dedicating themselves to correcting wrong history, the flawed assumptions of management history that have become natural to so many people. So, and it's such a worthy cause. I must.
It's the accepted wisdom, right? Yeah, it's like, you triggered me just like the topic today was triggered by that Jim Burton article. As I try and share the post here so we can get some more folks watching.
Yes. Should we give some context about the person who wrote the article?
Oh, please. I hadn't been, again, the guy has 250,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm like, and he writes this thing about hierarchy. I'm like, and the first thought was, oh my God, this is what we're up against. That was the trigger. But if you wouldn't mind, I would love to have a bit of context about Jim Burton here.
Oh, Jim Burton. Okay, maybe we're talking about a different article.
Who did
about an article by Bob Sutton? Okay.
Bob Sutton. Bob Sutton. Oh,
Bob Sutton?
Gosh, you're right, Bob Sutton.
Yeah. His name. Yeah. By the way, I didn't reread the article, so you will have to contribute the update on the article that we will discuss. But Bob Sutton, I mean, he's a superstar management business school academic. Now, I think officially retired on, or how do you say it? He's
an emeritus.
Yes, he's an emeritus management professor. Published lots of best-selling books. I owe quite a few, 5, 6, 7 books at least of Bob Sutton. I also bought his new book. Only started reading it, so that I will not opinionate much about it. Which is about the latest one. It's about, what is it? Friction Project, I think it's the title. And Bob Sutton wrote some quite delightful critical books. Also did some debunking of management myths himself. One of his book is, what is it called? Hard Truths, Dangerous Myths, and Other Nonsense, or something like that. So Bob Sutton, he did some serious business book writing. Wrote those best, the No Asshole Rule, I think he wrote, which is a fantastic title. I think he was the first person in our field to put the word asshole in a title of his books. So that alone deserves an award. Robert I. Sutton is his true name. Here is one of the books of his that I like best: Hard Facts, Dangerous Half-Truths, and Total Nonsense, a book in which he debunks, together with a very respected Jeffrey Pfeffer, he debunked a lot of dangerous myths and totally flawed assumptions. And it is it is a book that we recommend on the BetaCodex website as well. It's among our 100 or so book recommendations on our website. So Bob Sutton, superstar, best-selling academic in our field, but not everything that he writes is totally. Some of his writings shall be challenged. Let me put it like this.
Yes, indeed. Why don't we let's get to the article here. Let's put that up here. Okay. So,
hierarchy is good. Hierarchy is essential, and less isn't always better. So why did you, Ryan? Why did you decide, or you did suggest for us to talk about this article or this topic here?
Yeah, to bring it into, because one of the things that we talk about in these terms of orgaphysics, there's a compliance hierarchy. That compliance serves a purpose in organizations. Well, compliance serves a purpose, legal compliance and those kinds of things. And then the influence network and the value creation network, beyond that. So the primacy, I think, of hierarchy and not just in organizations. I think there's some to talk about how hierarchy plays in society in general, but in organizational context, it was triggering to me because we in the BetaCodex we talk about that, and I think even in the ideal beta, I mean, kind of there's networks in all three. There's or both. You would have a network in the center of the organization as well as a network in the periphery. At least I recall seeing that, I think, in Organized for Complexity. But anyway, so I come across this article and I'm almost immediately triggered. So first by the title, hierarchy's good. He talks about Peter Principle. That's kind of, I think that's yawn, but that's kind of making the case for hierarchy being stupid. And he talks about this the dude, this Huggy Rao, and then of course we're calling in, he's using McKinsey as a source of authority on this whole thing. So the main points, I'll kind of read the point and then the big quote in each one of them. Hierarchy is inevitable. Okay. Why? So hierarchy is inevitable when scholars attempt to find an organization that is not characterized by hierarchy. They cannot. Pure bullshit right there. Okay.
Yes.
There's that. Basically, in holacracy, hierarchy of circles, which we've been very critical of holacracy in here. Holacracy, which are to be run according to detailed democratic procedures. And again, he's saying what we said. At the same time, each circle operates within the hierarchy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And we can certainly go back here. Organizations and people need hierarchy. Yeah.
And why? So what reason does Sutton give?
So yeah, what does he give? So reading that, while there's no doubt some hierarchies are better designed than others. Okay. Interesting test is what happens when there is little or no consensus about who has more and less power. All right. So this is kind of, we're going into the continuum of the stuff. So Grunfeld and Tiedens, they were the ones who did the study from before. They describe a series of studies showing that when such agreement is absent about, so the formal or informal, here's another trigger, pecking order, God, I hate that term, is not clear, members become less committed to their groups, less productive and effective, dysfunctional competition for status emerge, and coordination and cooperation suffer. That's one. Another interesting test is what happens when layers of management are removed in a company. Certainly, some organizations have too many layers. Apologies for just reading this out, but I kind of have to do it. But some quite famous founders have discovered that they need intermediate layers, even though they long for the good old days when it was just them and a small team. Talk about a need for beta. So Google's founder, Larry Page, is exhibit 1. So I don't want to necessarily read through all this, but
yes.
Let's see if there's Page learned the hard way that a hierarchy can be too flat and that middle managers are often a necessary complexity. Okay, so we'll move on. Again, we can continue on here. This is still on that point. I think there are only 2 points that he makes in here, but he has some of these quotes. You have to make sure you never confuse the hierarchy that you need for managing complexity with the respect that people deserve. Okay, right? Respect for people sounds like something lean, right? So it's kind of peppering in that with the evil. Because that's where a lot of organizations go off track, confusing respect and hierarchy, thinking that low on hierarchy means low respect, high on the hierarchy means high respect. So hierarchy is a necessary evil of managing complexity. Bing, 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 trigger.
Yes.
But in no way has anything to do with respect that is owed an individual. Okay.
Sadly, there is no law against writing bullshit in our field, right? It's totally permissible to write any kind of meaningless flabber.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an attempt to be somewhat nuanced about it, because I mean, he puts this quote in here too: "The job of the hierarchy is to defeat the hierarchy." Okay, all right. So at the end of it, I think I might have had a response that I had prepared for that, but I just said no, I don't want to spend my mind on that. What do you think? What are the hallmarks of effective hierarchies? So the 2 points. The 2 points are ridiculous at their core. Hierarchy is inevitable. No.
Well, we can.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by hierarchy? And organizations and people need hierarchy. Yeah. Okay. So
which says a lot about the author, right? This kind of sentence, it says a lot about the author and his image of human nature, right? That's what's most interesting about this article, I would say. That we learn so much about Mr. Sutton himself, much more about Mr. Sutton than about his topic, really.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine the leaders and leading part of this thing comes in there too. That
now, may I use what you just did a very nice sum up here. We're going through the article, quoting a little bit here and there from that article, and it reminded me of a book that I once read, but I do not remember which book it is. I admit I will loosely quote from a book, and I do not remember who wrote it. But that author, it might have been Mr. Sutton himself. I'm not sure. I would have to look it up. But basically, the author or authors there say there's a lot of writing, a lot of talk about hierarchy. And there are the romantics who claim that so-called romantics who claim that hierarchy has to go. It's over and done. We should get rid of hierarchy, and the others who defend it, and both are wrong. That's both are wrong. Yeah, and Mr. Sutton does a little bit of defense of hierarchy here, I suppose, and it's so flawed. But why is it flawed? I think the most interesting thing is whenever we talk about hierarchy, we do it. Mr. Sutton presents a great example here of how to discuss hierarchy during an article, but you could also write, there are so many books about this same topic that are void of theory. So it's just about, opinions, cases, little anecdotes, and history. It's like the Google anecdote here. It all amounts to nothing. It all amounts to bogus nonsense, bollocks, right? Because authors like Mr. Sutton here, we're only talking about this article now. As I said, I own several of his books. I'm not against Mr. Sutton. I hold him in a certain regard, in high regard, actually. But this piece, not his forte,
not his finest work,
not his best. So we're not talking about the person here or criticizing the person. I think what we should talk about in a broader sense here is hierarchy. The pros and cons are usually irrelevant because there's no proper definition, no theory behind it. So most of the time when we discuss hierarchy, we mean, as Mr. Sutton explains, in a way we confuse it with stuff. Like, what does he say? We confuse
respect.
It with what the fuck? That is really unrelated. That's utter bullshit, I think. But of course, usually when we say hierarchy, we mean power, and then people are against power. By the way, the book that I loosely quoted from, it's about power. I just have to figure out which one it is. It might be Jeffrey Pfeffer's or Mr. Sutton's or whatever. Doesn't matter. So power, is it the same as hierarchy? I believe not. Otherwise, the word hierarchy wouldn't exist. We wouldn't need it. It must be something different, right? And we say in our work, hierarchy is just one sort of power.
Right.
One that stems from formal structure. Mr. Sutton evidently does not know this theory or doesn't believe in it. He has another hypothesis, right? Which makes his reasoning totally loco from our point of view.
Suspect.
Yes,
we disagree.
From the
you don't have to agree.
From the theory that we educate, it's a hilarious article. it's a farce. But again, if we assume for a moment that there are several powers, hierarchy is one of them, then the whole thing can be debated in a different way. And then we can debate, is hierarchy necessary? Why? What is good in hierarchy? Not like this fuzzy distinction. There's necessary hierarchy and unnecessary hierarchy, as Mr. Sutton does.
It's like complexity. It's like the weather. It is.
He doesn't understand what the difference between complicated and complex is in his article, of course, which he may not have written by himself, right? Bob Sutton may not have written that article, but we have to assume that he wrote it because he put his name on it.
Yeah. So, and again, I mean, maybe this comes right into it, because when the couple pieces that I'm like, you're not really going deep enough. It's that one, status. Yes. Status is one of the things that, and we've talked about the whole, the trainer and consultant thing. You want to be at this point of status, respect for one another, that we are colleagues, right? That we're not in whatever server and buyer seller relationship, whatever that is. But status, that is a need. But that's not a fixed need. That's not formalized status. That's informal, social. We are working together. And status is different. Like the status in this place versus status in a bar somewhere, or versus status in a family, which is, it's kind of a weird thing. But there are people who do that. But I'm saying, but that informal, dynamic status relationship, where do I fit in this environment? Am I familiar? Am I unfamiliar? And the other thing that the status, I'll say, in a small team, right? Mm-hmm. You have varying levels of mastery and varying disciplines. And if there are, say, 3 software developers on a team, someone with 20 years experience, someone with 10, someone with 2, right? There's a status of mastery. There's a status of, there's experience, and there's respect. There's the mutual respect. I get that. That's universal. But if with that respect is, I respect your mastery. I respect your history, or I know you, depending on how familiar I am with you. So I kind of mixing those things up, but just in terms of status, that's, I feel, and again, we don't have to agree, you can challenge on that. That's natural. That is a human thing, to want to know where you fit. And I call it status. I would be curious as to how you respond to that.
Of course, this is difficult. If we mix up more words into the discussion, it becomes more multifaceted and more complicated. I would say that status has these 2 facets. One is it's something that is ascribed to people. The status of the guru, the expert, the master. Yeah. So that's something we ascribe. It's part of what we call value creation structure, reputation. Yeah. So we ascribe status to people. It can be related to hierarchy as well. Yeah. And ascribed through hierarchy. Oh, the king is coming, and so on. And then we followed on these and so on. And then status is, I think, something that we desire more or less. We're different in desiring status more or less, or needing it eventually.
Yeah.
I would prefer not to go too deep down this slippery slope of bringing the status discussion into this. I think discussing hierarchy and powers is enough on our plate for today. But
but that's that. Again, when I think of universality, and again, the conflation of all these things. Oh, hierarchy is good. Hierarchy is bad. It leads to nothing. It leads to nothing. It's like, then we're arguing about bullshit.
But what is it good for? What is it not good for? I think that shall be the question, no?
So this is what is hierarchy good for, right? Enforcing compliance.
That's what we say. Based on org physics, the theory that every organization has 3 structures. One is formal. One of these structures is formal structure. In formal structure, people with position have hierarchical power, have hierarchy, the power that we call hierarchy. And that power is inevitable, in fact. Yes. Because it is needed for compliance reasons. Yeah. So every company, companies of certain legal forms need to have a
Yeah.
CEO. Companies of other legal forms need a general manager or something like that.
Yeah.
They're different.
Officers, right? You have officers of a corporation that you're required to do that by what is SEC in the US or whatever governing body in the
Yes.
EU or whatever.
Yes. And so there are positions and you can nominate a hierarchical position. So hierarchy doesn't fall from the sky. It is not something you deserve. It is something that is bestowed upon you. Yeah, you're nominated into a position. So hierarchy is something that is intimately related to position. The other powers that also exist in an organization, we call them, not Mr. Sutton. He just, it's a spaghetti of arguments and story that he presents. But our notion is that there are also two other powers. One is influence, which comes from informal structure, from having influence on other people. And the third is reputation, which is the power that comes from mastery. And those three powers, reputation, influence, and hierarchy, they all coexist in every organization. Yeah, and every person has those three powers, but in different measure. Yes. For example, you can have a CEO, lots of hierarchical power, who everybody loves. Everybody loves him or her. So that person would have probably huge influence, and that person can have a lot of mastery as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any CEO could possess the three powers. Some only possess hierarchical power.
Well, it depends on the history of the organization. If that person came up from the engineering discipline, they came through. If the system of that company if the people in that company, not the system, value engineering skill as a way to bestow power, the power to make authorization, authority, right? So this is when I talk about the concept of the periphery, teams in the periphery, I talk about dynamic mastery-based authority, right? Authorization based on respect for each other's mastery in a socially dense team, creating value, right? So that's when I think about that. Dynamic, is mastery-based. And
yes, the problem starts when you call that power hierarchy too. Oh, that's a hierarchy. No. We recommend to just keep it apart. As much as we distinguish a chair from a table or a sofa, it's different stuff, right?
Yeah,
it's worth distinguishing.
Different in kind. Yeah, it's different in kind.
And it has different uses, and especially if you are in social groups, it might make sense to distinguish tables from chairs and not mix it up. Otherwise, you could create a lot of confusion. So hierarchy, we like to insist in a way, or be specific. I think we are inviting everybody to be specific about it and attribute hierarchy or to define it as the power that arises from formal structure, and formal structure is needed for compliance reasons.
And I think there's also the abuse of power to be used for compliance and enforcement and disrespect for dignity and this view of human nature, right? So we have.
No. Now you become a little moralist here. Let's not be moralistic.
Well, but to use power in a way that is disrespectful of, so disrespect, right? So maybe that's what you're saying, is that I say respect is this, you say respect is that. Well, okay.
No, I'm just saying that people do not abuse positional power, hierarchy, out of disrespect necessarily. They might be disrespectful of others, my underlings, my slave-like employees, my
authoritarian view of you are
paternalistic, authoritarian attitudes might be in play, but I think most managers are just ignorant of what they are doing when they command, when they put out orders or push people to do certain things, when they emit commands, when they make, for example, this is I think we have discussed this in other episodes, but let's repeat it for a moment. This notion that managers, or wrongly leaders, make decisions, and this of course has been an epic theme over the decades for the last 100 years, that supposedly people with positional power, hierarchical power, are supposed to take more decisions than others, which is a totally epically flawed understanding of what decisions are, what they should be used for, and who should make them, because we argue most of the time, based again on org physics, that decisions are rare. You shouldn't often make decisions, because sometimes you shouldn't make a decision. You should have an agreement, and then people with hierarchical power shouldn't necessarily make decisions, but people with mastery.
So does that imply that? Does it imply that's flexibility? If you make a decision that is a decisive, you are making a cut. Like, that's where the root of the word comes from. To decide is to cut. But if that we come to agreement, we reach an agreement on where, what to do in order to follow the market purpose. We are agreeing that this market needs should be met in this way based on the resources that we have available to us through our value creation network, right? So, but that, okay, we're kind of getting out of here, but in a traditional concepted, hierarchy, a pyramidal kind of thing, that thou shalt drive change, and that you each drive part of that change, and that, okay, so this level you guys drive 1, 2, 3, these other parts of the change, and if the change fails, then this person, this director, is a failure. Then these 3 managers are a failure, and then these 50 or 100 people are a failure. So then this is about that there's a decision, and that thou shalt follow these dictums, and that if you fail to meet my goal, then I shall punish you. Right?
Not sure where you're trying to get at.
I guess what I'm trying to get is, we're talking about you brought decisions into it.
Yes.
Right. So if a decision is made from a power source of positional authority,
someone at the top, yes.
Someone at the top makes a decision that is fixed, right? There's the target. I'm deciding what the target is.
Left or right. Left or right.
Or direction, the steering. Okay,
yeah.
So I'm deciding on the steering. And
1 million here, 40 million there. That's
okay. So the budgeting, right? You're talking.
All kinds of decisions are made at the top in command and control alpha organizations. All kinds of decisions often are made at the top, and then after the decision, you want implementation or execution.
There's no conversation. There's no
agreement. That's why most things do not happen. You cannot decide on change, for example. It's just bollocks, right? You brought up. It was a brilliant example that you brought up.
But that's
change is undecidable. Like culture is also undecidable. Innovation is undecidable.
And this is the whole thing about driving change, right? So who's driving, steering? Who's steering this change? Where is it going? And it shall go here. And if that's where it goes. But
again, circling back to the matter of hierarchy, hierarchical power in that context and in others is wildly overestimated.
Yeah,
it is. We have been living in an age of hierarchical hubris, where people at the top with positional power imagine that they shall decide, that they are the only owners and bestowers of power, which is just hilarious, really, because those people, as Mr. Sutton does, do not understand value creation structure and informal structure enough to base their arguments on that.
Well, it's control.
But we argue we don't have to agree, of course. Nobody has to agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Sutton will probably think differently about this, and so everything is debatable. We don't have to agree, right?
If you are behaving, if you are playing the alpha game in an alpha organization that is currently structured in a positional hierarchy with formalized roles, fixed authority, and all that kind of stuff. And if you have been educated, if you have gone through your life's work, 20, 30, 40 years of playing that game, well, maybe a little bit that when an alternative is presented to you, there's a level of, do I understand that? Do I agree based on my positional power and what I have gained in my life as a result of it? And this is the whole that's beta. I've only been living. Oh, well, I really want that. I don't want this anymore because I see what this hierarchy, right? This
Yes.
power over domination hierarchy. So I was
By
like
the way,
domination and compliance.
what you just say, Ryan, reminds me of a Gary Hamel article that we discuss in my BetaCodex masterclass as well. First, let's fire all the managers. An article from Harvard Business Review from 10, 15 years ago, I'm not sure, about the
Morningstar, wasn't it?
Morningstar case. So the article is called "First, Let's Fire All the Managers," which is bollocks.
Yeah.
The title is bollocks, not the article. The article is semi super good, and at the end it gets a little weaker. We can discuss this more thoroughly if anybody likes. First, let's fire all the managers is just bullshit, because you cannot fire all the managers for compliance reasons. You will always have some managers with formal power, with compliance power, so as you might also call it, hierarchical power. You cannot make hierarchy disappear. Of course, I assume that Gary Hamel did not want to give the article that title. I'm sure that people at Harvard Business Review forced him to put that title on his article, which is quite unrelated to the Morningstar case, of course. Right? The Morningstar case is about consistent self-organization, decentralization, which is great. You should read it. But the title, of course, is ridiculous, and in a way, this getting rid of hierarchy, of course, is hilarious. Applauding a hierarchy is ridiculous, either because the abuse of hierarchy for other purposes than compliance, producing compliance, and being within the law is always obnoxious. No? That would amount to steering, and steering in complexity is not a good idea internally to have. Very interesting subject, this hierarchy thing, don't you think?
Yeah, and I was trying to find the Hamel article in my masterclass notes, but I couldn't find it. I was going to put it in the chat or in the
it's publicly available somewhere. First, let's fire all the managers.
And here's another thing about hierarchy. All right, so there's one really simple articulation of hierarchy that I kind of like. It was put forth by Venkatesh Rao. It's called the Gervais principle. Have you ever heard of the Gervais principle?
Is that Ricky Gervais?
Well, it's based on the office. Like Ricky Gervais is this middle manager.
Oh, really? Okay.
Who's a schlub there, and the way Rao puts it is rather controversial. Is that at the top we have sociopaths, in the middle we have the clueless, and then at the bottom of the hierarchy there's just the disillusioned or the whatever. So in other words,
that's like the famous shitting pyramid, birds shitting on each other,
birds, monkeys, whatever animal thing is there. But it's that, okay, and this happens a lot, or has happened over the past years in terms of the agile space, and a lot of people, some folks that are prominent in the agile space are saying, no, this whole thing about managers are evil, and leaders are good, which is all other. But managers are evil, right? And that there was a certain feeling of that came out of the agile software, the manifesto for agile software development, and all that kind of stuff, that we don't need no managers, and which is really bullshit, because an organization has to have them. And then this whole firing the managers. One thing that I remember, this maybe takes us in another direction again, but when the transformation happens from alpha to beta, you're not firing the managers, right?
It's an unrelated topic. You don't have to fire anyone. Yeah,
exactly. But when folks say, "Oh, we're going to decentralize, we're going to go flat hierarchy," what about the managers? What will the managers do? Oh my gosh. Well, what is the organization? It's what we call it very fast organizational transformation, right? The organization is transforming from alpha to beta. Doesn't mean that people are kicked out, but it means that the standards change, the expectations change, what the system changes, right? So this is again, that's where the learning
And
comes in.
people can again dedicate their valuable time to value creating efforts instead of to steering, managing, commanding, controlling all the time.
Budgeting,
Which
all
is
that kind
inevitable budgeting and all this other planning shit, yes, which is inevitable in an alpha organization. By the way, this reminds me, just circling back to the Sutton article for a moment, I think what makes me angry a little bit about that particular article that we looked at is that Mr. Sutton, different than Mr. Hamill, doesn't seem to even assume that there is an alternative command and control. All his logic,
It's based on a one-dimensional assumption.
It's based on the assumption that command and control is inevitable and right, because people need the hierarchy and that stuff. So I think it's very frustrating. To me, that is why that is dinosaur age. It's long gone. It's an argument that's so boring, to argue that hierarchy is needed because command and control is necessary, because people are so stupid, because people are theory experts, because they need to be forced and bribed and motivated. That's such a boring, wrong. In other sciences, people would be laughed about.
Laughed at. To be led. People need to be led, right?
People don't need to do that. Is just a hipsterized rehash. Not really hipsterized. It's old stuff as well. And this distinction that managers are dumb, leaders are smart, managers just do shit, leaders propel the organization to the future, which is of course an argument that has been long promoted by John Cotter. And it was sexy, it was interesting, it was exciting at the time, but it's hilariously boring and outmoded, really.
It's the development of leaders.
Shame on people who repeat that shit on and on.
Well, but it's an ignorance, and not in that sense that's idiotic. But if I don't know about something, I'm ignorant of it. So if I am ignorant of the progression, the development of what leadership means, what leaderships mean, yes. The idea of understanding the difference between that's kind of an aha.
Yes.
And I mean, again, I came into this whole idea of being in an organization when I was 27 years old and listening to Stephen Covey. Right. Stephen Covey was one of the he's a foundational person in my thinking, was that, well, managers are climbing up the wall, this one wall in this direction, and the leaders are top saying you're climbing up the wrong wall. So, and that's what leadership
efficiency
is.
Versus effectiveness.
Yeah. And that's
so a 1980s thing. Though,
it's 80s thinking. Have we not progressed? Have we as professionals in organizations, has there not been progression? I think, and you just said no, there hasn't really been.
Sadly, not yet. I mean, most people refuse to. It's in other sciences. Again, one of my sons, he studies physics, and in physics, if you would argue for an outdated hypothesis or theory, you would be laughed at, and people would say,
well, why are you here? What do you study? Are you reading the same books we are?
Have you slept or something for 20 years? That's what people. And in our field, no. In our field, it doesn't matter. As long as you sell the books or whatever you sell your skin for, if you are well known or have followers or whatever, it shall not be scrutinized that you are talking bullshit. So I think people like Mr. Sutton should be should care more for theory first, and for the latest theory, ideally.
What? And this is interesting.
Theory, theory that makes sense, theory that's rooted, as we have been retelling all of it, as we discussed with Todd Bridgman, right?
Yeah.
We shall not just read stuff from business book authors. We shall also be interested in history, psychology, the social sciences, philosophy, and so on. Politics.
To be educated professionals in whatever discipline we choose to be. That's again what a liberal arts education was designed to instill in folks, and which that's a whole other thing. But there are a couple things from Todd's article, the book that came up. That one is that, well, if you're going to school to study management and you're getting a master's degree in business administration, in management, and then going into an organization. Well, yeah. And then to be so dismissive of the concept of managers and managing, it's like being a doctor and saying, oh, medicine is shit. This other thing is better. So can you imagine doctors or lawyers or others in the profession being dismissive of a major part, the foundation of the profession, right? And that's one thing I liked about the article, is that it's not bad or good. Management is that things require management. They require to be managed, and if you do that, you are managing those things.
I prefer to distinguish between managers, who are people who have formal powers, or formally authorized people in an organization. That's a thing that's needed, for compliance reasons. And managing, to me, that's something totally different. Managers shall not manage. They shall take care of compliance and legal stuff.
And maybe this is another thing. So having the list of topics, but management as a social technology. I mean, that's what we're saying. That belongs on management as a social technology belongs on the garbage heap of history, right?
Exactly.
So that's
not managers belong on the garbage heap of history, but managing as leading as well. That belongs on the garbage heap of history, because it all means it's all clausal code for command and control, for steering from the inside out, which is hilarious. And not funny.
Top down, right? So I'm going to set the direction. Everyone's going to follow the directions. I'm going to lead. You're going to follow, and you're not going to make
everybody marching my rhythm.
Yeah, I'm the drum major. You're the marching band. You're going where I go.
Yeah.
Right.
Dance my song.
Dance my song. And so this is another thing that came up. If we look at the numbers, right? I'll just make up a fictitious organization. Of 100% of the organization, you have maybe 10% executive, of 30% middle management, or maybe more, and then 60% workers, employees, whatever you say. And then if in a transformation, say, oh, we're gonna flip it all, and there's 30% of people in an organization who think that they are susceptible to being exited, right? So that's
talking about beta transformation. You're talking about change management.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. If hierarchy is if we take the position, hierarchy is only beta transformation, it does challenge the notion that the formalized power structure and hierarchy is suitable for compliance management, right? So the hierarchical positional power is due there, and that in an alpha organization, right, that means that in a beta alpha middle management has authority as well because of positional power, and then you go to a beta organization that their power source changes, right? It's from formal to informal. I mean that's what happens.
I wouldn't say very good point, but the power source doesn't change. The accent moves from formal structure to informal, and hopefully even more so to value creation structure. But let's remember, even an alpha command and control organization has strong reputational power, has strong influence, strong informal structures. There's a lot of power always in informal structure and value creation. We must make that official. We must make it
it's the system. You're redesigning the system, and so I think this is maybe a little bit of an aha for me. Is that okay? So if all of the authority becomes unfixed for 90% of the organization, right? That doesn't mean that Bob the manager or director in alpha becomes Bob in a beta organization. But Bob still has influence. Bob still has a reputation. Is
Who is
that
Bob?
that
Is
kind
Bob
of
a manager?
Bob is the alpha manager,
Okay.
and Bob
But
in
Bob
beta.
still keeps his position, even in beta transformation. He may keep his position. There's no people do not have to be removed. We had this interestingly. We had the same conversation today at a client where we are undertaking beta transformation, day 36 of 90 days of open space beta transformation. So in the middle of it, and we had this. There was this. It was not properly understood at the client that when a cell structure design, a decentralized cell structure is adopted, of course, then the usual departments and business areas, and so they vanish in a way. It all this is being dissolved into the cell structure design. That means periphery is in charge and so on, right? And there was this misunderstanding in the group today about, okay, but that means that managers are not managers anymore. And I said, no, that's a totally different thing. If you do not change who is a manager, people stay managers. And there is certain managers have certain people reporting to them, direct reports. Do you call it like that in the United States still?
Yeah, direct reports.
So in a way, adopting a cell structure design doesn't change that. You still have managers who have direct reports. You don't have to change it. You can change it, but it's independent of the cell structure design, totally independent.
So
it's neither problem nor solution for beta transformation. That's very important.
So, and again, I think this is a concept that needs reinforcement. Because even I'm thinking, well, in a beta transformation, well, titles don't matter, right? And that's it. So that's me thinking that. So titles don't matter, and then that we're all becoming 7 to 10 person cells, right? But those, and I think also that that the cells aren't necessarily fixed either.
No, the cells fixed. Not sure if that's a good word.
Well, but in terms of membership in a cell, that you can you can have a function. We talked about this before, and again, maybe this is my misunderstanding as well. But there's a cell serves a functional need. Would you agree with that?
Every cell possesses functions, many functions, different than having a sales department and a production department and a logistics.
They're not divided.
Design, you integrate different functions into one cell: logistics, sales, and production, whatever. Not a very good example, these functions, but you reintegrate functions into different cells. We call it sometimes functional redundancy. That's what the socio-technical systems people call it. Functional redundancy within teams. And that means that managers do not have to steer anymore, because these highly autonomous teams in the periphery and the center can steer themselves. So you do not need managers doing the steering. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think that we're talking about the idea of cross-functional or integrated functions, like the branch of the bank, right? A branch of Handelsbanken.
Exactly. They do marketing and compliance and giving out loans and doing consulting to clients and taking care of their finances and their own branch or whatever.
Right. The branch in suburban Stockholm, for example, that has whatever has 28 people in it.
No, but okay.
Or again, so I'm getting down. But the branch in suburb of Stockholm is completely autonomous and independent in and of itself, and gets resources from the I'm not going to go into it that deep. I think that takes us somewhere else. But again, there's the autonomous branch has an integration of functions to serve the needs of its market.
Yes.
Right. And
exactly.
So
then you do not need managers managing. You can have managers focusing on the compliance shit. Hausmeister Deluxe, as I sometimes call it.
What would you say?
Housekeeper Deluxe. Right. Yeah.
Housekeeper Deluxe.
Manages the compliance job. The compliance job is a housekeeping job. Right? Because you have to take care of contracts and accounting.
Hygiene.
Personal or organizational hygiene? What kind of hygiene?
Well, organizational hygiene. I'm
But everybody should take care of organizational hygiene, right? But those are great questions. Yeah. What else do managers have to take care of? And if you argue that, okay, they should think about the future so that they can constructively irritate the organization. Those are
constructively irritate the organization. And that you kind of put that in there, and I think that's lovely. I could constructively irritate the organizational.
Or take one of the best CEOs in history, in my opinion. I never met him. He passed away a couple of years ago. Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airlines. Yeah. He adopted this nickname, Lord of Ha Ha. So he thought he was also responsible for promoting humor in the organization and be funny and make the organization hilarious and likable, and and promote the love in a sense that love for the business, love for
the customer, love for
exactly.
That's why beta is love. We've said that before. Beta is love, and that's we're talking about the role of the manager. In a beta transformation. I think that's probably an episode series. I think that we could have multiple discussions about that. But so we've talked about, I guess, if we talk about the good, the bad, and the partially true, I think we've kind of hit most of those.
I hope so. I hope we didn't talk about bullshit. That's on the eye of the beholder, of course. And because as always, we don't have to agree, right? They're different, but we are quite sure that we are right, that hierarchy is needed for compliance.
Well, hey, what did we say? Dogma is not wrong. Dogma is. And to be dogmatic about...
we are dogmatic and we laugh about it. Yes? That's our stance.
It's like we're talking about the laws, the laws.
Yes, which is also, the idea of this is we better subscribe to laws. Any constitution is a law as well. Laws are not pitiful, tiny, stupid things. Every constitution is made up of laws, and we think that this BetaCodex thing, it's only the essentials, right? The essential 12 principles or laws that any organization that wants to be self-organized, democratic, and decentralized should adopt, because it's logic. It's just logic. It's like quasi-physics. And hierarchy, we cannot get rid of it, but we shall never use it. Organizations shall never use it to steer the business, to run the business, to change or promote innovation or that kind of stuff, because that is the realm of value creation structure.
Right. The hierarchy shall not be used to exercise power over another individual. Right. And that's Folletian. Exactly. Right. And I think that's what we talk about. So I think we talked about the good, the bad, partially true. I don't have anything to say other than that when I watch this, we probably have 4 more episodes to kind of go.
Yes. Comments welcome. Of course, comments on YouTube and anywhere welcome. We do not. I think we covered a bit and
just the we've done decisions before. The other thing that came up, and this is that when we're talking about agreements, agreements aren't decisions, and alignment is this other thing. We must align. It's not about agreeing; it's about aligning. And that if you're, and this is again the other article about what are the distinctions we talk about. There's agreement versus alignment. And those are totally different things.
I think it's very and we've talked about this so often in so many episodes, but we cannot talk about it often enough. Words matter. Words are mental models in clothes. So there are mental models hidden in our words, in our vocabulary, and of course alignment. Like you started this conversation with talking about human centricity or human-centered stuff,
human-centered design, big thing.
Organizations cannot be human-centered because humans are not even part of organizations. Only our communication is. So if we use theory, we can debunk these notions. And alignment, I think, is very... most people still do not seem to be aware that alignment is a command and control idea, right? You have alignment, you have it in Stalinism, and everybody else gets a shot in the head. Or in fascism, of course, you have alignment, and that's not a good thing. Alignment is people marching in the same rhythm. Even if we are individuals or marching in the same rhythm, that's alignment. Yeah,
and we're the leader.
This works so well with the camera, right? Yes, try it. It's good. Yes, we are individuals.
So we're going in the right direction.
Individuals, it's like. Okay, that's a little bit of comedy for them. Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
I
that's
think
like,
alignment is a command and control notion. We should come together. We should have integration, as Mary Bucket thought. We should have
yeah.
civilized disagreement and discourse.
And the unified, the one-dimensional instead of the three-dimensional version of hierarchy, right? Hierarchy is used to align, is used to steer, is used to budget, is used to allocate. In the alpha, is used to command, is used to drive change, and all of this words. This is the languaging of the alpha organization,
Yes.
and that I think is the challenge. Maybe this is the one thing I would and thinking of that I want to say, and then we kind of land and go to what's next. Is it's important to be able to speak alpha. Because you have to speak alpha because some folks can't hear beta yet. They don't know how to speak beta yet, or have that frame for it. I think we don't have to agree, but it is important to be able to speak alpha to people who have lived that for a long time.
Really? Because I do not do it. When I work with organizations, I only speak beta. I do not adhere to the alpha codes. And it immediately creates an impact. That's one part of my consulting philosophy. Interesting, right?
But you don't acknowledge that they have a different mental model.
Oh, I acknowledge it and I laugh about it. For example, if somebody says they, the people, they have to change the culture, then I kind of make a face, and people then get it. And after a while, they get that it is funny to still talk about aligning and getting into the boat and motivating. Today we had somebody in a session at the client talk of motivating people, and I'm sure I did my face again, but some others in the room, most in the room, also made the face, and that's progress. Yeah. Of course, we cannot change. I mean, somebody
you can't change someone else.
Exactly. Somebody I hope will have taken him aside after the meeting and told him, look. Trevor, or whatever his name was, you talked of motivating. Update your language, because it doesn't make sense in a beta, and they are doing beta. They are doing open space beta. So everybody we have to hold each other accountable for the language, and I do that. Today, for example, somebody there mentioned that some people might be afraid or are afraid of the changes. Afraid, fear? Well, nobody has to fear anything. But wait, everybody was invited. An overwhelming majority.
There's no sanction. No sanction for
no sanction. There's nothing to fear. Afraid of what? Be specific. Don't just say that people are afraid or that people have fear, because that's politics. That's,
well, you have a conversation, right? What are you afraid of? What do you think?
Exactly.
What do you think this person's afraid of?
We had exactly that conversation afterwards.
Yes. It's. I think.
And that what is uncertainty is to be acknowledged, of course. Ambiguity is to be acknowledged. There might be doubts, legitimate doubts about anything related to beta, really. But to assume that others have fear in their hearts.
You're afraid.
Self-organization is abusive. I think it's part of the manipulation that we are used to from alpha organizations, from command and control ideology. And I think Mr. Sutton, in a certain way, appeals to that as well, right? He kind of plays with the idea. He kind of puts this idea in our minds, tries to manipulate us in being afraid of self-organization, which is Sith.
There is good and evil, my friend.
Yeah, look at and I can only invite everybody to look at the article, but you read out a few quotes that indicate that Mr. Sutton has severely misunderstanding in his article, right?
He's mistaken. Now there's an article up here on the screen now.
That's an article that I hope is more to the point.
Yeah.
And not void of theory, I hope.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and again, as we always say, you don't have to agree, but we're right.
We're still right, even if you may agree or not. We're still right. Yes.
And yeah, it's important.
That's humor. That's humor. Right?
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Everything shall be discussed. Everything can be discussed. And again, I'm not criticizing the person here. I'm just criticizing that particular article. We have kind of critically reviewed that article a little bit, or discussed it critically. And that doesn't mean that we do not have other publications by Bob Sutton in the highest regard. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I've got some things going on, you've got some things going on. You're obviously engaged with the client.
Yes.
Is there other BetaCodex network activity that you would like to invite folks into here in this space that we have?
Oh, we have something coming up. What do we have coming up? Do we have the
Well,
research?
I'm going to be teaching foundations, I think.
Yeah, tell us about it. What is that?
Well, what I'm going to be offering as a subject to this Summer of Learning event that I'm doing is to teach a course for those who are invited and wish to attend on the BetaCodex foundations based on the laws of the BetaCodex to kind of go to that next level of understanding, and that we can have the conversations with folks who are unfamiliar or uncertain about BetaCodex, explain the theories behind each of the principles and how they interact. So my intent, and this is my going in position, certainly to invite what is alive in the folks who come to the course and what it is they don't understand, and we'll make sure we want them to understand. But my intent is to go through the book, at least to use the book as a guide, right?
Okay. So that's part of the raw material you will want to use during the course.
Yeah, this is part of the raw material that I'll use for the course. And of course, you can't expect someone to read all 100 books before taking a class this summer, but the white papers are great. So how do the principles relate to the white papers, relate to the reading, relate to the theories overall? And there's too much to go through, right? We had a 16-hour master class. I think we had last year.
Yes. My master class, yes, that was 16 hours. I think 3 times. No, how many episodes? How many sessions do we have?
We had 4 sessions.
4 sessions.
4-hour sessions.
4-hour sessions. Yes. And your course?
My course is, I would say it's going to be about 4 hours. That's my intent.
In total?
In total. Well, again, it's going to depend on availability for folks. I want to be flexible to understand of the needs of the course.
Yes.
But I really like the masterclass format where we had 2 weeks, 4 classes. If I could, maybe this is an 8-hour thing. So, maybe it's a little ambitious to think go through all 12 principles and theories and stuff, but there's certain, dare I say, levels of mastery and familiarity with the principles that it's important to live with them, to understand them, to ask questions about them,
yes,
and to challenge them if that there's a feeling to do that. 4-hour course as it starts to be arranged in terms of times. I'll be offering. I'm going to be doing open space events pretty much every day on my feed. You can come in after I do an agenda. I'll do an open space online. You can come in and we can talk about it there. I'll also be doing some more formal open spaces over the next summer.
So for people to sign up for your BetaCodex 4-hour format, is that possible already? Is that on the website? Where is it?
I don't have the right now. The Open Leadership Network classes are assigned like the launch points for them. BetaCodex Network, we were going to talk about this afterwards today, but I was going to put them in the Luma calendar as well.
Yes.
Look for
in a few moments from now.
In a few moments, we'll be in there. But again, the schedule is, I want to be very accommodating to folks. If you want to learn deeply about the BetaCodex, I will do what I can to facilitate your learning and do that. So LU.
And very necessary. I think it's Beta needs to be talked about to be assimilated, to be integrated in your thinking. It's not something that it's not like Scrum. You can get a training and you are a Scrum master. You're a master in just 6.5 hours of course with the master trainer. So BetaCodex wants to be integrated in your head and your heart, right? So
absolutely. And again, we haven't been about. There are qualifications that we have been talking about doing qualifications. We don't have certificate for the BetaCodex.
Yes.
Bound. I don't have a certificate. I'm not like some authority to grant that, but it's the learning that counts. So we'll talk about that if that means
I'm delighted that
I
you're
have
offering that format. I think it's much more people should offer BetaCodex learning formats. I think it's a welcome addition to the portfolio of learning opportunities that we have. On BetaCodex.org, you will find more in the Luma calendar. We will put that your date or dates for that offering up there.
Yes, lu.ma/BetaCodex network, and put that in there. So
yes,
for the live stream notes, I'll be sharing that. There's nothing else coming to mind to me to talk about hierarchies or anything like that. I wish you much success with your client.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we're out of here.
See you also next week.
Yes. Thank you for the precious gift of your time.